Night shifts make ordinary places feel wrong. A gas station feels different when the highway is empty. A motel feels different when every room is dark. A warehouse feels different when the only sounds are cameras clicking, lights humming, and your own footsteps coming back to you. These three people were only trying to finish their shifts. The first worked at a gas station with one rule every employee learned on day one. Nobody asked why the rule existed. By the end of that shift, they understood. The second worked at a motel where room 11 was supposed to be empty, until the phone rang from inside it. And the third was a security guard who realized someone inside the warehouse knew the blind spots better than he did. One locked door, one empty room, one camera gap, and in all three stories, someone knew the building better than the person working there. Let's start with the gas station. I worked overnight at a family-owned gas station for about 14 months. 2 pumps out front, a walk-in cooler, and a bathroom key attached to a wooden block. My shift ran midnight to 8. On my first day, the owner, Gerald, gave me one rule. Never prop open the back employee door. Lock it every time. He didn't explain why. He just said it like the reason was something he didn't want to talk about. I followed the rule and forgot about it. About 3 weeks in, I noticed the man I'll call the regular. He came in around 1:15 in the morning. Tall, 50s, faded canvas jacket. He bought the same 3 things every time. Large coffee, gum, and bottled water. Always cash, always quiet, never gas. By the 3rd week, I assumed he was a trucker or a plant worker, someone with a routine. People have routines. Pause. A few nights later, a dark sedan started appearing in the lot. 2:40 in the morning, far left corner of the lot. Engine running. 4 minutes. Then gone. Next night, same thing. The 3rd night, I checked the cameras. That corner of the lot was the only place the exterior cameras didn't reach. Keep that corner in mind. A few nights later, the regular came in as usual. Same 3 items. Same cash. But this time, when I gave him his change, he looked at me and said, "You keep the back door locked?" I said yes. He nodded and left. I told myself he was probably a former employee. Maybe everyone knew about that door. Then, 3 weeks later, I heard the handle. 3:04 a.m. I was in the back doing inventory when someone pressed down on the employee entrance handle from outside. Slowly, deliberately, like they were checking if it was locked. The handle released. Then nothing. I checked the monitor. The back of the building had no exterior camera, only an inside camera facing the door. The door was locked. The hallway was empty. I called Gerald. No answer. At 7:15, he called back. When I told him what happened, he only asked one thing. "Did you keep it locked?" I said yes. He said, "Good. I'll check the footage." He didn't sound surprised. That bothered me more than anything. When Gerald reviewed the hallway camera, nothing showed at 3:04. But then he kept scrolling back. He stopped at 1:20. The regular had been at my register at 1:18. I had the receipt. I remembered it clearly because he almost dropped his water bottle and I caught it. But at 1:20, the hallway camera showed someone standing near the employee entrance, facing the door. Faded canvas jacket, same build. Before I continue, ask yourself what you would have done here, because I still don't know if I made the right choice. Gerald checked 6 weeks of footage. On 4 different nights, the regular was time-stamped at my register while someone in the same canvas jacket appeared in the back hallway within minutes. Same jacket, same build. On 2 nights, the figure was near the shelf where we kept the spare keys. Gerald changed the locks, added a camera outside, filed a report. The deputy later found a similar report from a gas station 40 miles north. Someone had entered through the employee entrance early in the morning. Nothing valuable was taken, except the bathroom key, the one attached to the wooden block. The next morning I checked ours. It was still there, but the screw holding the chain to the block was new, clean, no rust. Someone had removed it and put it back, carefully. The regular never came back after the locks were changed. I worked one more month at that station. Gerald never explained the rule about the back door. He didn't have to. I still think about the receipt from 118, the one proving he was standing in front of me, the one that meant whatever was in that hallway couldn't have been him. I've never found an explanation. I'm not sure I want one. If you like quiet, realistic horror like this, subscribe. The next two get worse, in a much slower way. The worst part about the gas station story is that the pattern had already been happening for weeks, maybe longer. In the next story, something goes wrong in the first hour. The problem is, it looks exactly like a system error. I've worked building security for 9 years. After a while, you develop a feel for places. Which lights flicker, which doors stick, which sensors lie. I started at Kellner Distribution in March. Huge warehouse, 3 levels, cold storage, loading bay, office section in the middle, solo overnight shift, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. 12 camera feeds across 2 monitors, 2 patrols a night. The cameras were good, but not perfect. A building that size has gaps, secondary hallways, back sections, maintenance corridors, places the cameras almost reached but not quite. If you knew the layout, you could move through large parts of that building without being clearly seen. Someone did. Pause. For 6 weeks, nothing happened. Then one Thursday night, camera 7 stuttered. 1:34 a.m. Main central corridor. Less than a second. I logged it as a signal dropout. 2:01 a.m. It happened again. 2:47 a.m. A third time. This time something changed. Before the stutter, a yellow safety cone was on the right side of the corridor. After the stutter, it was on the left. Same cone. Opposite wall. The corridor was empty in both frames. No blur, no motion. Just a cone that crossed 8 feet of floor in less than a second. Cones don't do that. I called my supervisor, Dennis. He told me to check the corridor. I did. Nothing was disturbed except the cone, exactly where the camera showed it. Then, at 3:15, the motion sensor in the east maintenance corridor tripped. That corridor had no camera. In 6 weeks, that sensor had never gone off. I walked it. Long, narrow, dark after the first few lights. Checked every access panel. Nothing. At 3:29, the sensor tripped again. Movement registered for 11 seconds. That corridor was about 200 feet long. Whatever moved through it covered that distance in under 11 seconds. I called Dennis again. This time I said, "We have a problem." Pause. Dennis arrived at 4:10 with another officer, Carla. We swept the building, every level, every bay, every accessible room, nothing. Then Carla stopped in cold storage. On a hook near the supervisor's door was a Navy security jacket, Kellner logo centered on the chest. She looked at it and said, "That's not current issue." The new jackets had the logo on the left breast. This was an old design. Dennis checked the keypad log for that room. Last normal entry, 4 days earlier. Then one more. A ghost entry, no card ID attached. Timestamp, 1:33 a.m., 1 minute before camera 7 first stuttered. Pause. Dennis pulled archived footage, 8 days earlier. Camera 4, South Loading Bay, 4:52 a.m. A figure walked out from inside the building. Calm, unhurried, wearing the old Navy jacket. The exterior door opened. No alarm. Dennis froze the frame and checked old personnel files. He found a match. A former overnight security officer. Worked there 11 months. Terminated for unauthorized access to restricted storage areas. He knew the building. He knew the patrol route because it had not changed since he left. He knew the camera gaps. He knew the sensor timing. He knew where to disappear. His key card had been deactivated in the system. On paper, it was dead, but the old reader on the cold storage door still accepted it. He had kept the card, and he had been coming back. Footage showed 6 visits over 6 weeks, always early morning, always through uncovered corridors, never clearly visible. The cone had been moved on purpose. He wanted to know if I would notice, if I would check, if I would react the way he remembered security reacting. He was testing whether anything had changed. The sheriff contacted him. He denied everything. The footage was too grainy for charges. Kellner replaced the keypads, updated the cameras, changed patrol schedules. I transferred 6 weeks later, but I still think about the footage from 8 days earlier. We saw how he left, clearly, through the loading bay. But after reviewing the entire shift, every camera, every angle, we never found how he got in. He knew that building well enough that even the cameras couldn't tell the whole story. I've worked security for 9 years. I've never stood inside a place that felt like it belonged to someone else. That warehouse did. Every room I've worked since, I checked the gaps first. Night shifts have a way of making ordinary places feel unfamiliar. But in all 3 stories, the buildings were not the real problem. The problem was who else knew how to move through them after everyone else had gone home. The routines, the gaps, the doors nobody watched, the cameras that didn't quite reach. I worked the overnight desk at a small motel called the Lakeview Inn. There was no lake anywhere near it, just 18 rooms, 1 office, a soda machine that barely worked, and a 2-lane highway out front that went quiet after midnight. My shift was 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., almost always alone. Most nights were boring, a late check-in, someone asking for extra towels, a truck driver leaving before sunrise. The kind of job where the loudest sound after 2 in the morning was usually the ice machine kicking on near the lobby door. Room 11 had been blocked before I started. The owner, Paul, told me there was a plumbing issue. Slow leak behind the bathroom wall. He said the room was unavailable until repairs were done. Then he said something that stuck with me. Don't issue a key for that room. Doesn't matter what the system says. I asked if it ever made mistakes. He looked at the computer for a second, then said, just don't issue it. The key card stayed in the office drawer. Paper sleeve. 11 written in blue marker. I checked it on my first night. It was there. For 3 months, nothing happened. Room 11 stayed blocked. I walked past it during lot checks and never gave it much thought. The curtains were always closed. The window was always dark. The parking space outside it stayed empty. Then, at 2:17 a.m. on a Wednesday, the system changed. Room 11 showed occupied. I stared at the screen. No name, no payment, no check-in, just occupied. My first thought was that the computer had glitched. It was old and slow. Sometimes it froze when I tried to print receipts. Sometimes it showed the wrong date until I refreshed it, so I refreshed the screen. Room 11 still showed occupied. I opened the office drawer. The key was still there, in my hand. That was the first moment I felt something move in my stomach. Not fear yet, just that small, quiet feeling that something didn't line up. I marked it in the log as a system error and kept watching the screen. At 2:44, the front desk phone rang. I answered with the usual greeting. Lakeview Inn, front desk. Silence. Not dead silence. Something faint underneath it. Breathing, maybe, or old line static. I said hello again. The call ended. The display showed the room extension. Room 11. Pause. I know it sounds small. That's why I didn't panic. Old motel systems do strange things. Internal phones misdial, lines cross, wires get old. But I stood there for a full minute, still holding the receiver, running through what I knew. Key in drawer. No guest, no check-in. Phone call from an empty room. That was the first time I looked toward the hallway instead of the computer. From the desk, I could see through the lobby window and across part of the parking lot. Room 11 was around the corner on the back row. I couldn't see its door from where I sat, and for some reason, that suddenly mattered. I pulled up the lobby camera. No one had come through since midnight. The only person on camera was a truck driver who checked in around 12:08, took his key, and went straight to room 5. No one else entered the office. No one asked for a key. No one touched the drawer. Then I checked the back camera. It was grainy and slightly angled wrong, but it covered most of the rear parking area and the row of room doors. At 1:51 a.m., a figure walked along the back of the building. Dark jacket, head down, moving close to the wall. Too close. Most guests walked down the center of the sidewalk. This person moved like they were trying to stay out of the camera's reach. They stopped near room 11, then stepped into the small gap between the edge of the camera frame and the door. And they never came out. I never walked out. Pay attention to the timing. The figure appeared at 1:51. The system marked room 11 occupied at 2:17, 26 minutes later. I still don't know what happened in those 26 minutes. I called Paul. No answer. I called again. Still nothing. I thought about walking to the room, but I didn't. I'm not going to pretend I was brave. It was almost 3 in the morning. I was alone, and someone had called me from a room that was supposed to be empty. So I stayed behind the desk and locked the office door. At 3:06, the phone rang again. Same internal display. Room 11. This time I didn't answer right away. I let it ring 3 times. 4, 5. Then I picked up. Nothing. No voice. No breathing. Just a soft sound in the background, like a television playing in another room with the volume turned very low. Then one tap, not through the phone, from outside the office window. I looked up so fast I nearly dropped the receiver. The parking lot was empty. The call ended. That was when Paul finally called back. I told him everything. The room status, the first call, the figure on the back camera. Fast, I nearly dropped the receiver. The parking lot was empty. The call ended. That was when Paul finally called back. I told him everything. The room status, the first call, the figure on the back camera, the second call. He was quiet for so long I thought the line had dropped. Then he said, "Stay in the office. Don't go to the room." That scared me more than if he had sounded confused. Paul arrived at 3:22. He didn't come through the front like usual. He parked near the side of the building and walked straight to the office, looking toward the back row the whole time. He had his master key in his hand. We went together, but he made me stay several steps behind him. Room 11 looked normal from outside, curtains closed, no light under the door, no sound. Paul knocked. Front desk. No answer. He knocked again. Still nothing. He opened it with the master key. The room was empty. Bed untouched, window locked, bathroom dry, heater off. The room was cold, but on the desk near the TV was a motel notepad, the kind with the Lakeview Inn logo printed at the top. 2 lines had been written on it. Paul read them. His face changed. Not fear exactly, recognition. He folded the page and put it in his pocket. I asked what it said. He said, "Nothing you need to worry about," which of course made it the only thing I could think about. Pause. 3 days later, he told me the truth. The overnight clerk before me hadn't moved away like he said. She quit. Before she quit, she filed a harassment complaint against a guest who had stayed in room 11. Paul said the guest seemed normal at first, paid cash, kept to himself, barely came to the office. Then he started calling the front desk at night, not asking for anything, just calling and staying silent. Then he started appearing on the back camera, walking near the office after midnight. The clerk told Paul she felt watched. After the guest checked out, Paul blocked room 11 and made up the plumbing story. He didn't want to explain it to me because he thought it was over. But the sheriff had kept a file open because the previous clerk had reported the same thing I did. Room 11 marking itself occupied. Phone calls from inside. A figure on the back camera. She experienced it 3 times before she quit. Her key card had gone missing on her last shift. Paul said he deactivated it, but the system was old. A technician found the real problem the next morning. There was a duplicate card programmed for room 11. No name attached. The date on the card was 7 months old. Before I was hired. Before the previous clerk had started. Whoever made that card had been planning this before either of us sat at that desk. I asked Paul again what was written on the notepad. He didn't answer. He only said the sheriff had it now. I worked one more week. On my last night, I checked room 11 every hour on the system. 11 p.m. blocked, 12 a.m. blocked, 1 a.m. blocked, 2 a.m. blocked, 3 a.m. blocked. Then, at 4:06, the back camera flickered. Static filled the screen. When the image came back, the timestamp had jumped. 4:06 to 4:10. 4 minutes missing. I checked room 11 on the system, still blocked. But when I looked at the back camera, I noticed something I hadn't seen before. The curtain in room 11 was slightly open, just enough to make a thin black gap. It had been closed all night. The sheriff reviewed the footage and said the dropout looked like a signal interruption. Maybe electrical. They explained the gap. They didn't explain the curtain. I handed in my key the next morning and never went back. Whatever wanted room 11 had been there before me. Maybe before the clerk before me. And maybe that was the worst part. Some things are worse when you realize they didn't start with you. The motel had 18 rooms. The